All right. I do appreciate everyone being prompt. We are going to talk this evening about the college financial aid process. And if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the Zoom chat box, or you can save your questions for the end of the presentation and we can discuss them at that time. We want to talk a little bit about college costs this evening in reference to the financial aid process. So, parents all know that there are quite a few expenses involved in completing your college degree. Those are going to include tuition fees, room and board, any supplies that you might need, your books, if you're staying away from home, equipment and room materials, and of course, other travel and other expenses. Now, you can see here that federal student aid does offer a series of programs, and these are made available to all citizens and eligible non-citizens to be able to help pay for those expenses. And those programs include the Pell Grant, which most all of us have heard of. This is a need-based grant. The FSEOG is an additional need-based, but for the neediest of students. Then they offer a service grant, which is available for parents of students who have died performing duties on or after 9/11. And now they will include any officer who's serving in any capacity in the line of duty. So if someone, has a parent who has been unfortunately killed, they can participate in the service grant program. And then there's the Teach Grant. And these are available, grants are available for those who plan to study education and teach in a need-based school once they graduate. But you want to be careful about the Teach Grant because if you do accept this grant money and you do not choose to teach, this grant will convert into a student loan, and then you will be paying it back with interest. The Federal Work Study is a great program that is administered by the college financial aid offices. Students can contact their financial aid office if they're interested in working while they're in school. These jobs are very, I'm sorry, I'm still admitting students and parents. These jobs are available. They're very comparable pay with what students might find off campus, but your hours are going to be more flexible, and you may be allowed to study while you're at work if your tasks are completed. These jobs also look great on your first professional resume, so please consider this program. And then your last, I guess, choice would be federal student loans. There is a difference between these loans. The direct subsidized loans are available for students who have financial need, and interest is waived on this type of loan while the student is in school. Once he graduates or ceases to attend, he does go into repayment and interest begins to accrue. For the direct unsubsidized loans, these are available for almost all students, but interest is beginning to accrue on this loan once it is fully dispersed, which is usually in the spring semester. So if you do accept a student loan, you'll have a fall disbursement and then you'll have a spring disbursement, which usually comes in January. Then you have a 30-day repayment, a 30-day grace period, and then it's time to begin repayment. Parents can borrow on behalf of students if they choose to do so, and there are PLUS loans for graduate students. All of these monies can be used at 2 and 4 year colleges, at career and technical schools, for online accredited programs and grad school as well. There are priority financial aid deadlines at most colleges, so make sure that you are checking with your schools, those that you're interested in applying to find out what their deadline is. The sooner you complete your FAFSA, you will be in line to receive your financial aid offer. Who can complete a FAFSA? Of course, citizens of the United States and U.S. nationals, those who have a green card or an arrival departure record, those with battered immigrant status, or those with a T visa. All students with any of these types of documentation are eligible to complete the FAFSA. Now, if a parent does not have one of these documents, then they also can contribute to the student's FAFSA. They do not have to be a citizen or eligible non-citizen to assist in their student's FAFSA. Now, the 25-26 FAFSA, which is the FAFSA that the class of 2025 will want to complete, will not be fully functional until December 1st. However, you can begin now by creating your federal student aid ID. So if you have not already completed your ID, now is the time to get started. You will need your Social Security card or your permanent resident card. You want to make sure that the name you create your FSA ID or your federal student aid ID in is excuse me. You want to make sure that you're using the name that's printed on your most recent Social Security card. Now, as I mentioned, every student needs an FSA ID, but also one of his parents need to create this ID as well. So make sure that you are gathering all of the documents that you need to complete the form. And to create the ID, you will need to verify yourself in two fashions. Everyone needs to verify their email address, and then you may choose your mobile phone. You can verify your mobile phone number. If you don't have one, you can always download an Authenticator app and use that to verify yourself. The documents that you're going to need to complete the FAFSA itself or your FSA ID, as I mentioned, your Social Security card or your permanent resident card. You'll need your 2023 income tax returns and also records of assets. So you want to make sure that you're gathering your 2023 federal income tax returns and your W-2s. And then any investment accounts that you might have, education investment accounts. You need your checking and savings account balances. So go ahead and begin gathering all of the documents. You can see here that this is FAFSA that you're going to see when you log in now. You do not want to get started now. You want to wait until the 25-26 FAFSA has dropped. You'll begin the FAFSA using the FSA ID that I previously mentioned. In this case, we're starting with the student. So the student will enter his FSA ID username and password and identify his role as the student. You'll want to check over your student identity information because this is what's has been entered in your FSA ID, and you want to make sure everything is still correct before you continue on. Everyone will be asked to consent to have the IRS drop your tax information directly into the FAFSA. If the student chooses not to, I'm sorry, would everybody just make sure?
Like FAFA, I think.
I'm going to mute everybody. Okay, So, as the student, you must consent to have your IRS tax information dropped into the FAFSA. If you choose not to provide consent process, you will not be eligible for federal student aid. So remember to approve this step, and then you'll move on into the FAFSA itself. You can see that there are 5 sections that will need to be addressed: the personal circumstances, your demographic section, your financials, the colleges you plan to apply to, and then it's time to sign the FAFSA. This question arises often, and because many students are participating in dual enrollment or taking AP courses, or perhaps they've clept out of college courses, and that's great. Congratulations. However, for financial aid purposes, you must state that you are a first-year freshman if you have never participated in the federal student aid programs. Another question that we're often asked is, how do I know if I'm considered independent or dependent? You will be walked through a series of statements that if you can check just one of these statements, you will be considered an independent student. So let me quickly go over these personal circumstances. If the student is currently serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces for purposes other than training, or is a veteran of the armed forces, they will not need to, hold on. They will not need to provide parental information. If the student has children other than a spouse, that they provide more than 50% of financial support for, they're considered independent. And at any time since the student turned 13, if he was an orphan, a ward of the court, was in foster care, or legally emancipated, the student can check here and be considered independent. Or if the student is in legal guardianship. Now, there is a difference between legal guardianship and legal custody. So you must have a legal document showing that your parents have given up legal responsibility for you and appointed someone else to take that responsibility on. In that case, the student will be considered independent and not have to provide parental information. Also, if the student is in a special situation, he cannot answer yes to one of the prior questions, but he is an unaccompanied youth, or he is homeless or at risk of being homeless, he can receive what's called provisional independent status. But you will have to work independently and individually with the College Financial Aid Office to verify this. If a student does not want to provide information about his parents, he can apply for a direct unsubsidized loan only. When he does this, he will skip over the parent section, but remember, he won't be considered for any of the grant programs within the federal student aid program. The student will then be taken through a series of questions about his parents, who he lives with, or who his legal parents are, if a step parent is involved. And the purpose of this is to determine which parent will be contributing to the student's FAFSA. You can see here who parent contributors are and who should be listed on a student's FAFSA, whether you were never married or unmarried, or both living together, if you are married or remarried, or you're divorced or separated. This will determine the student's contributors. So make sure that you understand that the student will be worked through the questions to be able to determine this. Now, if you cannot provide information about your parents. Say you live with grandparents or other relatives, you're in a situation where you do not live and do not have contact with your legal parents, but you are not a legal guardianship, or you were not emancipated, etc. You will still need to provide information about those legal parents. If you are in legal guardianship, that leaves you as an independent student, and you will need no other adults' information in your FAFSA. So remember, only provide information about your legal parents. Once these parents, contributors, have been determined, the student will provide information about those parents, which will include his legal name that was used and the FSA ID set up for that parent, his date of birth, his email address used in the FSA ID, and their social security number. Now, I know my children don't know this information about me. So I really encourage you to work with your students to make sure that this information is correct. Because once they enter it and submit the student section, that is where the invitation to contribute is going to go. If it doesn't match what the parent has created in their FSA ID, then the parent will not receive that invitation. So make sure you're providing accurate information. You will then move into the student demographics section of the FAFSA, which can ask some personal information. You can answer, or you can select prefer not to answer. You will then be asked about your citizenship status, your parents' education status, and many parents ask why they need to know, why does federal student aid need to know the education status of my parents? And this is important because there could be additional financial aid for first generation college students. Here is the parent killed in the line of duty question. If you find yourself in this situation, please report that here because you could be offered additional grants. The student will enter and confirm his high school so that his counselor will receive notification that he has submitted the FAFSA. And then the student will move on into the finance section. Now, I'm not going to go through the financial section with you because most students will not have much to report, but I'll go in a little more detail when we get to the parent section. The student will then add the colleges that he's considering. Remember that he can add up to 20 colleges each time he submits the FAFSA. So make sure that you're adding all of those schools. If you are planning to apply to more than 20, there are instructions in this section to tell you how to do that. And basically, you will enter the first 20, you will submit the FAFSA. Once it's processed, you will then be able to remove those 20 schools and add 20 more, and so on. Even if you have not applied for admissions yet at your colleges, go ahead and add them to your FAFSA as soon as possible. Your FAFSA is date stamped, and your colleges will consider aid for students in the order that they receive the FAFSA. So go ahead and enter your colleges here on the FAFSA and then get busy with your admissions applications. Then it's time for the students to finish up. You'll want to make sure that you're using the drop-down arrows to check every question the student was asked and his answers to each. If you find that you need to make a correction, you must do so at this time to make sure that the financial aid office gets the most accurate information about the student. The student will be again shown who is going to contribute to his FAFSA, and he will be shown that invitations have been sent to those individuals. And then it's time for the student to sign the student portion of the FAFSA. You will receive information about what is going to happen next. You will see the schools that you added to your FAFSA, those that are going to receive your information. You will see your parent contributors here. And if you need to update this, you can see that there is an opportunity here once the FAFSA is submitted to add an additional parent or step parent. And then you will receive an email telling you that your FAFSA has been submitted. It usually takes 3 to 5 days to process it. So once that is done, you'll receive an email with your FAFSA submission summary. You'll want to review that to make sure everything is correct. In the meantime, your parents or your contributors have already received their invitations to contribute. This email will contain information about why they're being asked to contribute and how to do that. You'll want to make sure that you have your FSA ID set up before you accept your invitation. The parent will then use his federal student aid ID username and password and identify his role as the parent. He will automatically see that he has an invitation to contribute to the student's FAFSA and provide consent to have the IRS drop his tax information from 2023 directly into the FAFSA. And this is what's known as the FAFSA simplification process. So last year, the FAFSA was a brand new FAFSA, and there were some glitches here and there, but hopefully you will not have any trouble this year. Parents will then move into the demographics section. This is information about them. Asked about their finances, if they participated in any of these federal programs, or if they received any of these federal benefits. Asked about his tax filing status. Amend the family size. If your family size has changed since 2023, you can make that manual correction. Report how many other dependent children you have to report. And then move into information about your return. Now, most information from the tax return is going to be pre-filled here. You won't see it happening. It'll be behind the scenes, but there are several questions that you will have to consider and enter manually. They want to know if you received any college grants, scholarships, or AmeriCorps benefits that were reported as income. And then if you have any foreign earned income exclusions. You will then move on to report the amount of child support that you received in the 12 months prior to the date that you're submitting the FAFSA. Any parent assets, which would include cash, savings, and checking account balances. Any businesses or investment farms that you might have. You must report the current net worth. You also must report the current net worth of investments, including real estate, but not your family home. Now, if you are curious about exactly what should be reported on the FAFSA, you will see that there will be a question mark over to the right-hand side of each field. And once you click on that question mark, you will be given a lengthy description of exactly what to report and what will not have to be reported. And I won't go into detail about this tonight, but I am available to work with you independently after our session. If you want to schedule an appointment, we're happy to work with you. I'm also going to be sharing this presentation with your counselor so you can take a longer look at this detail. And then it's time for the parent to sign and submit. Make sure that you're reviewing for accuracy. and making any corrections that you need to before you sign and submit. Once you have submitted, your information as the parent is going to be matched up with the student's information, and federal student aid will process the FAFSA. It usually takes about 3 to 5 days, and then the student will be notified that it's been completed and sent on to the college financial aid office. So make sure, of course, as I mentioned, that your information is accurate. If you do want to make corrections, you can do so at any time, but you will have to sign and submit the FAFSA, and it will go back through the processing. Financial aid administrators will begin to determine each student's cost of attendance. They will look for grants and scholarships that are available for the student. These could include institutional aid, federal aid, private scholarships that they know the student is eligible for. And they're doing this to determine the student's net price. And this is what the student is going to be responsible for paying out of pocket. Each of the colleges that you have been accepted to should send a financial aid offer to you, and it should line item every scholarship, grant, student loan, work study, in addition to a line item of your cost of attendance so that you can see exactly what you have received and how much you need, of course, to complete the academic year. You want to make sure that once you do receive a financial aid offer and you've decided to go to that school, that you are accepting your aid in this offer, in this order. Your grants and scholarships, those do not have to be repaid. Federal work study is earned money, so you don't have to pay that back. So your last resort really will be student loans. And this is usually where the net price comes in. Your net price is going to give you a total of exactly what you're going to need to come out of pocket with. And many, if they have not saved for this purpose, or if you're going to a pricier school, you will want to take advantage of the federal loan programs. But now is the time to look for all the scholarships that you can. Usually, scholarships are offered during the senior year. So make sure that you are applying for scholarships. This is the best way to buy down your student loan debt. The more scholarships you earn, the less money you're going to have to borrow. I know that your counselor is great about pushing out information about scholarships. They could come from nonprofits, from community organizations, your college or career school in the form of institutional aid. And LELA offers a $1,000 FAFSA completion scholarship. So if you are planning to apply, you can scan this QR code and be taken directly to our FAFSA completion scholarship application. It's a simple process. So all Louisiana high school seniors are eligible to participate in this program. And for those that are planning to apply to attend a college in Louisiana, or for those of you who are already attending college, we offer a $1,000 Choose Louisiana scholarship because we want to keep you here in the state of Louisiana. If you find that you need additional aid, we do offer a nonprofit education loan product. It's called LELA Choice. And I mention this because there are limits to how much you can borrow through federal student aid. So please keep this in mind. And if you're interested, you can find out more about it at lelachoice.org. Interest rates can be quite high. As a matter of fact, we've heard that the Direct Plus loan, which is the parent loan, this year is going up to 9.08%. And our Leela Choice loans are beginning at 2.94%. So make sure you're checking out all of that information before you borrow. We did publish the FAFSA completion guide for the class of 2025 again this year. I'm happy to send you an electronic copy, and our printed copy should be coming in soon. I'll be sending those over to your counselor to distribute to you if you'd like a paper copy. We've also published our senior checklist for college planning with some great information and links to scholarships and ACT registrations, and there's quite a lot of information here. If you would like to schedule a virtual FAFSA session, you can scan the QR code that we've provided here. If you want help creating your FSA ID, we also are working individually now with students and parents to create those. So you can see here the QR code to schedule your session. Or if you want to give it a try on your own, please feel free to call us if you have any hangups, and our number is listed here as well. I'm going to drop my email address in the chat box in case you want to contact me directly. And I do have one question about whether Leela is for parents or students. And actually, we work with both. We will assist the student through the student section of the FAFSA and the parent through their portion. Does anybody have specific questions? Let's see, another one has come in. Should you fill out the FAFSA if you do not think, if you do not think you qualify for need-based scholarships or aid? Is FAFSA used for merit scholarships beyond TOPS? And what is the difference between TOPS online? What is the difference between the TOPS online only application? And those are some really good questions. You are applying for federal student, you are completing your FAFSA to apply for federal student aid. However, the financial aid offices at the schools you're applying to use that FAFSA to initiate the aid process. That aid process could include institutional aid, private grants that the college may administer and that your child could be eligible for. So if you're interested in any type of financial aid pertaining to your college expenses, it really is best to go ahead and complete the FAFSA. Some scholarships require that the FAFSA be completed to be eligible for their scholarships. So that's your choice. I'm looking over the other questions here. Is FAFSA used for merit scholarships beyond TOPS? And the answer is it can be, yes. And what is the difference between the TOPS online only application? If you know that you are not going to be interested in any college financial aid other than TOPS, you can go on their website and complete the TOPS application there. You do not have to complete the FAFSA to be eligible for TOPS. So I will leave that with you to determine if you're interested. Okay, so I'm seeing that someone is saying that they can only see our logo and do not see the QR code. Let me know if you can see it at this time. And I'll move on. Are loan amounts based on parent and student credit? That's a great question because federal student loans, the student portion of the loan program, is not credit based. So every student has a clean slate and they can borrow federal student loans. However, if the parent determines that they want to borrow on behalf of the student, they will have to go through a credit check process for the parent plus loans. And yes, the FAFSA is not available yet, but you'll want to mark your calendars for December 1 so that you can complete the 25-26 FAFSA. And that's correct. You are going to want to create your federal student aid ID now because you are going to have that confirmed before you can begin your FAFSA. Let's see. So the FAFSA is only for people that feel like they may be available for aid other than TOPS. The FAFSA is your application for federal student aid. TOPS, of course, is state aid. So, and FAFSA is need-based and TOPS is merit-based. So there is quite a difference there. Most students are eligible for, some students are eligible for both. So sometimes it's best to go ahead and complete the FAFSA, and that, of course, will serve as your TOPS application as well. Do both parents need to create an FSA ID? They could. If parents are married and living together and but they file their 2023 income tax returns separately, then both parents will need an ID because the purpose of that ID is to grab information from the IRS to drop in the FAFSA. If you filed married jointly, all of your information will be in one grab and one parent will need an FSA ID. Okay, so does the student have to create their ID first? When you say first, do you mean before the parent or before the FAFSA? Because the student or parent can create their ID first. It doesn't matter. It's the same website, the same questions asked. Just think of this as your electronic signature. So the parent or the student can create their FSA ID. It won't matter what order. And then it'll be time to submit the FAFSA. Let's see, I thought I saw a hands up. Did somebody have their hand raised to be able to unmute themselves and ask a specific question? Or have we already answered those questions for you? Okay, does anybody else have questions? Please feel free to reach out to us if you have general questions or if you want to set up a session, and we're happy to talk to you individually. If there are no other questions, then I am going to end the meeting for tonight and wish you all the best as you go through your senior year. Please feel free. Oh, we have another question. Oh, it was a thank you. You're very welcome. It was my pleasure to present tonight. I hope everybody has a nice evening. Oh, hi, I have another question. Do you create a new FSA ID even if you have previously created one for an older child? What a great question. No. Once you create your federal student aid ID, it is yours for life. So students who are graduating from high school now could possibly use their FSA IDs when their children are completing the FAFSA. But if you did create an FSA ID previously, please log back into that ID and make sure that everything you have entered is still up to date. Your email address, mobile phone, permanent mailing address, etc. So just make sure that you have all of that correct before you begin to contribute to your child's FAFSA. Yes, if you had an FSA ID as an adult, you were the student, that is the ID you're going to use to log in and contribute and sign your child's FAFSA. But as I mentioned, make sure that everything is up to date before you begin contributing. So I'll stay on until everybody has finished up since we've had some questions pop up. Or you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Here's a good question. If you applied for FAFSA, do you have to complete the TOPS application? And the answer to that is no, because the Louisiana Office of Student Financial Assistance does receive notification about every Louisiana high school student who completes a FAFSA. When you complete that FAFSA, the TOPS office knows that you are interested in state aid as well. So all you have to do is complete your FAFSA or complete the TOPS application on their website. And I'm going to drop my email address in the chat box again, in case you didn't get it earlier and you want to discuss something with me personally.